welcome, Francis. Thank you, everyone, for having me. It's good to be here again. It's been a while. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if my screen is visible. Yeah, great. So I know we've had quite an amazing session earlier, so I won't really take much of your time. I think I'll probably round up this session maybe faster than 1 hour. Yeah, less than 1 hour actually, so that you can quite rest. So today I'll be talking about user-defined functions. It's not new. It's been in Power BI for a while. I think about maybe 5 or 6 months now. It's been in Power BI. For about 5 or 6 months now, and that's what we'll be discussing today. For those that don't know me, my name is Adewale Yusuf. I'm a Microsoft Most Valued Professional in Data Platform. I'm also a Microsoft Certified Trader. I have different certifications, and then have been in data for over 9 years now, let's say 10 years. I currently work at Accenture Dublin as Analytic Associate Manager, where I manage a team of like 22 people. So that is me. If you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and then you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel where I posted 1 or 2 content. So we'll be talking about UDF. Sorry, I think I need to move this person. Yeah. So we'll be talking about UDF, user-defined functions. So we'll talk about what is UDF for those that are just hearing this for the first time. We'll talk about why are you using UDF? Where can you define this UDF? We also try to understand the parameters of UDF, like types, subtypes, and the parameter mode. And that's what we'll be talking about. So what is user-defined functions, really? So I can just put it in a simple term. UDF is like a global variable in DAX. You know, we've had this variable in DAX that we've been using for a while, but one of the limitations of that variable is you can only use it inside one function. But UDF give you the power or the access to have a global variable, which is creating your own functions yourself, creating the functions you can use inside your model. So imagine you having a functions that you can call instead of just repeating this different bunch of measures in different scenarios, right? So you can create your own measures and introduce these functions where you are writing your DAX. And that's simply what UDF is. It's just as it stands, user-defined function. So you are defining your own function. And why do you need to use it? Most people actually ask a lot of these questions. So why do I need to use it? And I think the first answer I usually give is it's kind of give you some sense of reusability and consistency. For example, for those that deals with the exchange rates, you know, when you create exchange rates in your model, sometimes we use this long type of expressions to just create our exchange rate measure. And then when you want to convert different values inside your model, you kind of write this exchange rate again. So you iterate so many times. So instead of doing this, you can write just one user-defined functions that just supplies you everything you need, the tables you need, your exchange rate table, everything. And then you're only calling these calculations once, right? When you're writing your calculations, this helps with your performance, and then it also makes your model look neater and smarter. The maintainability is also easy, which means if you want to update a logic, for example, the example of exchange rate that I give, let's say something changed. Maybe we wanted to change an exchange rate table. We have a new exchange rate table. So instead of you going to about 40 measures and trying to update them, you know you only need to update it in one place, which is from your user-defined functions. You just go there and update the table, and all the entire measures that are layer on top of that measures will be updated as well. It's also safe to author. It's very easy. It supports some error-resistant code where you are actually creating it, so it's kind of very easy to use. It's actually live in your model, although it can be viewed in the model explorer. So it lives in your model, which means it's easy for you to call at any time you want to call it. So those are one of the reason why we use user-defined functions. And where can you write this? Currently now you can only write it in 3 places. So you can write it from your dash query view, from either Power BI desktop or Power BI service. You can also write it from the TMDL view scripting. So you can script it right there from the TMDL view in Power BI, both on desktops and on the service. You can also use Model Explorer as well to kind of structure your UDF. So those are the three places where you can use it. But the most common one where people use it is Dash Query View. And I think that's what we'll be exploring today, on how to write it from the Dash Query View. So before you start your UDF joining, UDF itself is kind of very easy as long as you know what to do. But these parameters are extremely important too, because if you don't understand how to use these parameters, then sometimes your UDF can give you a different result or an error or a result that you may probably not trust, right? And that is why you need to understand each of these parameters. So in UDF, we have type, we have subtype, and then we have parameter mode. So the type is basically 4 or maybe 5, right? But the most common one is any val, scalar, table, or any reference, right? So any val type is a type of reference that just accepts anything. So it's a parameter that accepts anything, any value, right? Then we have scalar. Scalar is now being divided into subtype, and this is scalar subtype here. So inside scalar, we have variant, we have integer, we have decimal, we have double, string, date and time, Boolean numeric, which is all of those data types that we are familiar with. Now, when you are writing your measure or you are creating your UDF, you need to structure your input in such a way that you know what you want the input to accept. Then we have table, which is quite straightforward if you want people to put table. And then any reference is also similar as any val. Then for parameter mode is a bit different. So parameter mode is what explains how a value is being evaluated, or how a filter context is being applied to the UDF that you created. So do you want it to just be a val or an expression? Well, when I'm starting the explanation, I'm going to explain this more for you, just for you to know the difference in val and then an expression. So I'm going to go to my Power BI desktop, and then from this Power BI desktop, I'm basically going to just show you how to create your own UDF. So like I said, you can start from the Dash Query view, which is from here, right? And then down here, you will see something called functions, right? Any UDF that you've written here, you will see them under here, functions. Function is here, all right? If you can't see these functions in your Power BI desktop, you should go to File Options and try to enable the features you have in your preview features, right? Now, how do you define a functions? Like I said, you can either do it through the TMDL or you can also do it through the Dash Query view. So we're going to use Dash Query view now. So in Dash Query view, you usually start with two things where you want to start implementing something in a query. You can either start with define or evaluate. But in this scenario, we are defining, we are not evaluating. So I'm going to start with define, right? Just giving you an example here. And the argument to write a function, it's simple. So there's an argument called function. It's just called functions, right? And then once you put the function there, let me make this bigger. Once you put the functions there, the next thing you want to put is the name of the functions that you want to write. Let's say, for example, I'm going to give you a simple example now. I want to just add two numbers together, this number plus this number. So I want to create something called addition, right? I want to create addition. That's the name of the measure that I want to write, right? Addition. That's the name of the functions I want to write. I'm just giving this function a name, and I'm going to say equals to this function that I'm writing. I want it to be able to do this, right? Then I'll put open brackets, which is my input is what I'm putting in this bracket now. So, you know, when you do any functions, it starts with bracket. And I'm going to say, what do you want to add into this? I can say x, comma, y, right? So I want anybody that is using these functions to put x, then comma, then y. Now, once they put x, comma, y, what do you want the functions to do? What do you want the functions to do, right? So to say what you want the functions to do, then you got to put equals to and greater than. That's what functions understand. Now, what do you want them to do when they do this? So I want them to just say, I want the functions to do x plus y. Right? That's what I want the functions to do. X plus y. Immediately you do this, you've already written functions to say, okay, so this is a function name. This is what I want the functions to do. I want the users to type in there, and this is what the functions will do. Then up here, you can see that I have update model now, which is add function. So if I click on it, it will add a new functions to my model called additions, which means I can now call this function now. I can call it anyhow I like. So if I go to my report view now and I right click and I do new measure, let's say I want to add sales amount and total cost, just for example. I want to add these two numbers together. So if I do add sales amount, sales and cost, that's the name of the measure. And I just say, I call the measure name. Who remember the name of the measures? Anyone type it in chat. What's the name of the measure that we just created, our UDF function? What's the name? Addition. Thank you. So if I look for addition here, then you can see addition here. Now, addition is telling me I have X, and then I have comma, and then I have Y. So if I do sales amount, right, then comma, then I do total cost, right? And I close my bracket. Addition is only asking for 2 arguments because that is what I put in there. So if I hit enter now, then this measure will be created. I can put this in a card or a table, so you just see. Then it has basically add this number and these numbers together. You can see this is 1.3 million now. This is basically this plus this, right? And that is what a function is. I can also decide to maybe say I want to view it from the query view. I don't need to travel all the way to Power BI before I can view that. So let me even view this here, so it's easy. So the name of my function is called addition, right? But because I'm doing it here, I need to just put this addition. And then inside addition, I just want to say, let me plus 10 and 20, right? 10 and 20, just for you to see it as an example, right? So if I evaluate this query now, let's see. So you can see it's giving me 30. Even if I put 50 here and I evaluate this, it's also putting it 60. But now, another thing you need to understand is, I was talking about parameters the other time, right? That parameter is extremely important. But when I was creating this UDF, I didn't put any parameter. I just assumed that the UDF is going to use the default. So if I come back to this X and I put something like this, right? Just the column, right? Then it's going to allow me to pick any parameters that I want. And you're going to see all those parameters here. You see any ref, any val, boolean, column, double, expression, integer 64, measure ref, numeric, scalar. So if I do double, for example, and I do double for this one too. Let's say I do double for here. Yeah, I do double. So this is double, this is double. So if I do 10.62 and then I run this, let's see if the answer is still going to be the same. Hopefully it should be. I think it is, but sometimes it may not because I didn't specify a decimal number, right? Let me run this. Okay, so this is also 50.2 and this is like 60 and then this is 60.17. Yeah, which make a lot of sense. So if I do maybe decimal, for example, it's still going to give me the same thing, but I'm just giving you an idea that you can specify the kind of different parameters that you want this to be, right? So that's the first example I'm going to give you. So the first example, we've created a simple function. Another example I want to create, let's say, for example, I want to create a measures that only look at the open store in my model. So if you look at this dim store, I have a dim store here. From this dim store, I have status here, and then I only want to calculate open store. I don't want to calculate any store that is not open. Maybe if a store is restructured, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do a closed store. I only want to calculate open store anytime I'm doing any summation in my model. And this way, I don't want to be applying this filter to all of the calculation in my model every time I'm writing a calculation. I just want to write a function. So if I go back to my measure, let me write another one here. So the other one I'm going to write, I'm just going to get rid of this. So the other one I'm going to write, I'm just going to say define, right? Define. Remember, we are defining a function. And what's the next thing to do? Put function. And after you put function, you put the name of the functions you want to write. So opened store, right? Open store. That's what I want to call these functions. And what do I want these functions to do? I want people to put the amount that they want to sum. I'm just going to type amount, right? I want them to put amount that they want to sum, right? And then I can give it decimal if I want to, or I can leave it because amount is kind of money, so it's always good to leave it as decimal, right? I can leave it. So amount of the store of the amount of whatever they wants to do, right? And then I'm going to say equals to or greater than to specify what functions, what do you want these functions to do, right? So when people use this function, I want them to use calculate, right? And I want to have amount. At that amount which they put there, then I want to do a filter that filter the status of the store, right? Status of the store. And that status should be open. Open. So let me close my bracket for this. So this is what I want these functions to do anytime anybody call it, right? So let me update this. And here under functions, you will see that I have another functions now called open store. Open store. So let me also run a query to look at the result of this here. So I can just evaluate, right? And then here, I want to summarize just to look at the result of the query. So I can summarize a column. What column shall I look at? Okay, let me look at the category store. Let me do it by category store. Category, the store category name. I don't know which one is category name here, but you know, it's category key. I want the category name. The category key again. Yeah, category name. I'm summarizing this by category name. And then what do I want to do? I want to create a measure called sales, right? You don't need to bother yourself about what I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of looking for ways to show you the result of what I did, right? So maybe I can show sales amount here, and then I'm going to do the second functions just for you to see the open store. So open the store amount, open store amount, so that we can see the difference between the sales amount and the one we wrote. So now I'm going to write the measure now. So I'm going to call the measure, and the measure is called open store, right? The measure is called open store, and then I'm going to put sales amount in there, sales amount inside open store, and then close my bracket, right? So if I run this query now, let's close it once because of the summarize. So if I run this query now, let's run it. So now you will see that if you look at this, you will see that I have the category, I have the sales amount, and I have the open store amount. But if you notice that both of them are actually returning the same thing, because I expect the open store amount to only return the stores that are open. But it seems it's returning the same as the entire sales amount. Did anybody know why? Anybody know why? Why it's returning the same? Anybody? You want to type in chat? Do you know why it's returning the same amount? At least say no if you don't. So let me know. Let me know you're engaging in chat. If you don't, just say no. And if you know why, let's also type it in chat. Okay, so Abdurrahman said no. I see no from one person. Let me assume the other people know. That's why they didn't type. All right. So the reason why it's returning the same amount, it's something that has to do with this that I was explaining earlier, right? Something that I explained, parameter mode is what explains how an argument should be evaluated, right? How an argument should be evaluated. Right now, because I didn't specify, although I specify a type, which is a subtype of decimal, right? I specify a type, which is subtype of decimal, but I didn't specify any parameter mode, right? And parameter mode is also extremely important, especially when your function is iterating on rows, right? You are doing some filter contests on your row, right? So that is why it's returning the same amount. So here, I need to specify what parameter mode did I want. I need to specify that, right? I need to specify. So if I basically go here and then I just say I want to specify a parameter mode called expression. And the reason why I'm going to do expression is because, let me just get rid of this one. The reason why I'm going to do expression is because I am iterating on a filter context. So the default of the parameter mode is var, and var means variable. So this is treating the function as a variable. It's just, okay, it's a variable. It's just a variable. That's why it's returning that. But by changing it to an expression, then it will allow me to be able to iterate on different rows. I can see how the decimal, so which is fine. Yeah. So if I come here now and I run this again, so I need to update this first. Sorry, but yeah, I need to update this first. Why is this not coming well? Decimal. Yeah. Okay. Let me just get rid of it. I need to update this. Once I update this, and then I come back here and I rerun this query, then you see that the value is going to be different. Now look at that. Can you see that the value is now different? So this is 475 and this is 461 now. This is 184 and this is 180. This is 818 and this is 800. And these are the stores that are actually opened, right? And just by me just putting an expression, and that is what the parameter mode is basically all about, right? When you're writing the function, you should put that in mind. Let me give you another example. Maybe another example I want to give is in terms of not just calculating as well. You can use this in terms of maybe conditional format as well. Let's look at this visual, for example. Let's say I want to do a color grading of when something is high, you should color it green. When it's low, you should color it red, right? And I want to create a functions for that. So I can come here and just define, right? And then after define, the next thing I'm going to do, if you remember by now, is called what? Function. Function. That is what I want to do. And then what do I call this? I want to do a color rule. Okay, let me call it color rule. Color rule. That's the name of my my measure that I want to write. Now, what do you want people to put in the color rule? Just a parameter. I don't want them to put much. Let me just say a parameter. Any parameter they want, right? They should just put something in there. And then once they put something in there, remember this thing. Function first, name equals to bracket in whatever you want them to put. And if you want them to put more than one thing, you put comma, comma, comma. But now I only want them to put one thing. Now, once they do that, what do I want the result to do, right? Maybe I'm just going to, let me even, so that you know I can also call a variable. I can call a variable inside here. And let me just call this variable result. And I'm just going to say equals to, what do I want them to do? I want to do a switch of colors, right? I'm doing a switch of colors, right? And in this switch, let me just say when this is true, right? And do a comma. So when this is true, when the switch is true, if the parameter that I put up there, remember the parameter I put up there, is less than 0, then the color should be red. I can just do red, comma. Now, if the parameter that I put there is greater than 0, then the color should be green. So I put that back to parameter is greater than 0, then the color should be green, right? S, the color should be what? We can do a default color, say, let's say black, right? Yeah, the color should be black. The color of the visual should be black. That's you can do that. So basically, I've put a condition here, right? But I need to return this. Sorry, return the result. Right. So I put a parameter here and say whatever parameter they put, if it's less than 0, the color should be red, and if it's greater than 0, the color should be green, and anything else should be black, right? So I'm going to update this, and here I'll have a new measure called color rule. Color rule. So if I come here now and I try to write a measure, so let me write a new measure. Let me call this sales color, sales amount color or something. Sales color. Just call it sales color something, percentage, or yeah, conditional format. Sales color conditional format equals to the name of my function is called color rule, right? And I'm only asking for one parameter. So I can do sales versus previous year. Just to, the sales, I've already have a measure that compares sales versus prior year here. So I can just pick that. Sales versus prior year. That's the only thing I'm putting in this measure. And when I hit enter, it created a function called sales color conditional format, CD. So if I go here now and I go to column, and I go to color, do effects on color, and then I change this to feed value, and I just come here to pick the measure. What's the name of the measure again? Sales color CD, and that's under fact sales. Sales color CD. Where is that? Yeah, this one. Sales color CD, conditional format, and I click OK. Can you see that? So now it's doing green and red, green and red, green and red, green and red for this. So if I want to do the same thing for something else, I don't need to. Let's say I want to do it for this margin. For example, if this margin is positive, it should be green. And if it's not positive, it should be red. I don't need to think too much. I already have margin here, right? I have a function for margin. I'm only going to go here, new measure. And I will say margin, right? Margin CD equals to color rule. And I'm going to look for margin, right? And I'll hit enter. So, and I'll hit enter. So basically, it's already on this. So if I go here and then I go to maybe color value, and then I'll change this to feed value, and then I'll go to margin. I think I call it margin something. And then where is it? Margin. Yeah, margin CD, and I hit enter. So this will be green because right now it's positive, right? Right now it's positive. And then when I try to switch from different things, I can also see that and then see what it is. What is it? So basically, that is just an example. Now, one more example I want to give you, or yeah, let me just give one more or two more examples before we go, so that I don't take too much of our time. I can give like maybe one more example. Now, two more examples. Let's do two more examples. Now, what if you want to create, the most common one now is you want to create year-on-year growth, right? Most of the time when we want to create year-on-year, we usually create a measure that calculates the anchor measure, and then we create a variance. We create a maybe time intelligence like previous year, previous month. Then we create a variance that compare both. Create a variance that compare both. Then you now use it, right? So basically, I'm going to come here and I'm going to define, and then I'm going to say function, right? And I want to create a year-on-year growth, And I want to say, okay, so what do I want people to put in a year-on-year growth? Just one parameter, nothing else, right? Close my bracket now, and I'm going to say equals to or greater than, And then I'm going to do a variable. So let me say PY, for example. Let me calculate the previous year. So I'm going to say calculate. And what am I calculating now? Whatever parameter that they put in there, that this person put in there, that's what I'm calculating. Whatever parameter that this person put there, then date add, do a date add on this, and then just look at the date table in my whatever, and then -1, and then year. We all know how to calculate this already, so it's just a demo. So that's the previous year that I'm calculating. Then after I calculate the previous year, I can now do the variance that divide the parameter by the previous year. So I can do, let's say, for example, variable again, and let me say this result, right? I think I'm missing a bracket here. That's why this is showing error. Yeah. So result, what do I want the result to do? I just want to divide. So divide my parameter. So I can just easily use that parameter minus the PY, and then comma PY. That should give me the variance that I'm looking for. Right. So the variable should return this. In fact, I can even introduce formatting here. If I don't want to format it myself, I can also introduce another one, another variable called percentage or something, right? That format this as percentage. So I don't need to kind of format it myself. So let me do format the result that is there, comma, what's the percentage code for percentage? I think should be 0.0%, right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, now and then for the negative one, it's going to be 0.0% as well for the negative. And I'm going to just close this. And then let's return this now. Return the result. Now, this is just a way of me making my measure look cleaner. But what I did basically is just to calculate the parameter date add. I did PY previous year, and then I did a divide and I added a percentage to it. So let me update this. So I have this here. Okay, I have year-on-year growth. So if I want to create a year-on-year growth for, I have another table here for just the sales amount, for example. Let me do a new measure. And then I'm going to do sales amount year-on-year growth. Year-on-year growth is equals to, look for the function that I wrote, year-on-year growth. That's the name of the function. The only thing I'm adding here is sales amount. You see, just by adding only sales amount, then I can come here and bring in the measure here. And now this measure is all returning 0. Did anybody know why? In chat. Okay, I see a question in chat. Please, why is it before showing red? Okay, I'll come back to that. When you keep the question in mind, I'll come back to asking questions together. So, why do we think it's returning 0? Anyone?
I think maybe because we had to specify the expression.
Thank you. So, Felipe shows you are following. So, I'm iterating on a row, but I didn't specify the parameter mode. I'm iterating. So, let me put it this way. Anytime you use calculate, you need to put an expression. You need to say this is an expression. You need to basically tell the function that this is an expression so that you can iterate on each of those rows. So if I update this right now, let's see. And then I just need to go back here. Can you see that now it's not showing 0. Now everything is giving me 0 point blah blah blah, 0 point blah blah blah, 0 point blah blah blah. And that's basically because I didn't specify expression before. And that is what's caused the issue. I didn't specify expression before. And because I didn't do that, it's already affecting whatever I'm doing. So there's another scenario. What if in a case where you also want to show, let's say like a unichild, you want to show an arrow down and arrow up on this particular sales amount growth? You can as well do that. But for the sake of our time, I'm just going to copy something that I did already. So let me just copy the unichart or the unicode, and then I'm going to just put it here. And then what am I doing? So I'm just doing, if something is not available, then this and this, then I'm adding a unicode or a unichild. I'm adding a unicode or a unichild. That's what I'm doing. That's just basically what I'm doing. So unicode and unichild. So you can look at these two functions in Excel. It's just unicode and unichild, and then you can look at what each of them is actually doing, right? You can look at what each of them is doing. So unicode and the unichild. Sorry, I think I deleted something. Yeah, by mistake. So unicode and the unichild. So those two is basically just returning arrow down and arrow up. Arrow down and arrow up. So if I update this now, and I go here, and then you look at this now, so you will see that now I have this arrow down and then arrow up whenever there is a increase and then a decrease, right? Whenever there is a decrease in each of the year, then there's an arrow down and there's an arrow up. So imagine you want to create this for different measures. You don't need to be writing this for all those measure one by one, just to write. In fact, you can even color code the color as well, that sales versus prior year when there is an increase and decrease. So the arrow down also has a color. Also has a color as well. And that is as much as an interesting stuff that you can do, right? So I'm just giving one more example, right? Just only one more example. Now, this example I'm giving, it's on SVG. Let's say, for example, I want to create an SVG. And this SVG I want to create is for a visual. And this visual, I want these visuals to just want to create this for a particular visual, just one visual. When this visual is this and this is that, based on the current price, and it's just change the visuals like that. So I can do an SVG, and I can call it an SVG card. So in such a way that anytime I put an amount, or let's say card title and then an amount, it's going to look at the whatever amount that I put, and it's going to create an SVG based on that. So let me just show you this SVG that I have here. So this SVG, you don't need to reiterate this, so you can get SVGs from online from svg.com. There's another, I think I have videos on how to use SVG on my channel. So if you are new to SVG, you can watch it. So what I'm doing here is quite simple. And then the measure I'm writing is called SVG card. Let me update this. And this measure, I want you to add two things. I want you to add the name of the card, right? Name of the card. And I want you to add the amount, just those two things. And here it's looking at the card title, and it's looking at whatever amount that I put. And I'm doing a growth on this. See, I'm doing a growth, and the growth is calculating the amount, then calculate the amount, date add, which is the same data that I have. Then I'm applying this formatting, right? This dynamic formatting to my SVG. Then after the dynamic formatting, I'm adding the SVG itself, right? The SVG itself. So if I come here now and I go to my value here or somewhere, let me just go here. You know, I can also do the same thing on cost as well. And I didn't need to do all of this again because I've already write this measure. Let me even do that so you see. So if I do cost year-on-year growth, right? And then I just do year-on-year growth, and I just look for cost, total cost, close my bracket, right? And if I add that to this, you see that all of those is already there. So anytime I'm writing a year-on-year, just come with the average and then it's always there. Now, the example I want to show you is a new measure, and I want to call an SVG card. So let's say sales amount card, and then I'll call a measure called SVG card, and I'm putting sales amount in here. Sales amount, right? And I'm going to hit enter. Sorry, I think I'm missing something. Oh, yeah. So I'm missing something. You remember in my SVG card, I added two arguments. I say two arguments is what I want you to do. And if you look at that, you will say card title. So the title, I'm adding a title to it. It's called sales amount, right? And then that's my title. And then I'm adding amount itself. And I'm closing my bracket, right? I'm closing my bracket. So now I've basically write an SVG card for this. So if I come here and I just insert, let's say, an image, for example, and then inside this image, I go to format image, and under this image, let's say I just change this to select from this data, and I had my measure to it. What's that measure called? Sales something. Yeah, there's VG to it. Oh, I don't know what I call it. I just forget now. I think I call it sales something. Sales color CD, sales plus cost, sales amount UDF, sales amount card. Yes, this one, sales amount card. That's what I call it. And just by adding that to an image, look at it. It's already creating an image for me, a card for me, right? And this card has both the sales amount and it has the growth. And it also even faded out the percentage. Look at it. It's faded out the percentage based on the instruction I added in the SVG. So if I need to create these for cost, I don't need to just iterate the wheel. I don't need to kind of do this again. The only thing I need to do is just add a new measure. And in that my measure, I'm only just adding cost to this now. So new measure. And I'm going to call this cost card, right? Equals to, what's the name of it? SVG card. And then I'm putting a title called total cost, right? Total cost. comma, and then I'm just looking for total cost. So you can see how simple this function is because I've specified it, I've already defined it. So if I added a new image now, new image, insert, right? Because that's an SVG, should be an image. So insert an image, and then go to image, and then change this to select from data, and then add cost image or something. Where is it? Cost card, yeah. Cost card. And you can see straight up, I already have total cost. Now I have the percentage difference of the total cost. If I want to create this for the also margin as well, I'm just creating that like that. And this SVG can be more beautiful than this. I can add a lot of things to my SVG. I can make my SVG even has like a line that just shows the growth of each of this with based on month, right? So that when I'm selecting different months, I can see what is going on there. And you see when this month is greater than each other, you see that there's a drop. There's a drop in there. So basically, this is where I'm going to stop because of our time. I will allow you to kind of ask questions now. Another thing in my SVG, you see that I also had this condition that when it's 1,000, it shows K, and when it's million, it shows M. When it's billion, it also shows B. So I'm going to allow you to ask the question now, and then I'm going to hand over back to the moderator. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adewale. That was one powerful session we just finished. I don't know if you have any question. Okay, if you want to ask question, maybe you can drop them.
I have a question.
All right, Spelling, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so my question will be based on performance. So what can you say regarding performance aspects using UDF and then the measure itself, writing it directly?
Yeah, in terms of performance, I would say UDF is the best because it's going to save you a lot of storage engine. And when you are looking at, let's say you are creating a year-on-year, for example. Let's look at the example of the year-on-year we create, right? If you look at this one, look how short this measure is, right? And then if you look at what we wrote here for year-on-year, imagine me repeating this like 14 times. Let's say I'm writing year-on-year for different numbers, and I'm repeating this like 14 or 40 times. But I only write this once here. I'm not repeating it 14 times. So which one do you think it will be most efficient in terms of performance?
Yeah, UDF.
UDF, because it's using less of the storage engine. I'm only storing this just once. Inside my main calculation is just a simple calculations. So basically in terms of performance, it's the best.
All right, thank you. I think there's another question in the chat for you. So Joseph is asking that, can you transfer UDF from one model to another? I think that's reusability.
Yes, you can. And with the help of SVG has actually helped us to do a lot of stuff. So if I come here and I drag my function here, this is basically all my functions. Look at them. Just by dragging this to the TMDL view, I mean. So just by dragging functions to my TMDL, I can see all of the functions that have been written from the TMDL view. So basically, I can even just copy this TMDL view, create another script from another file, and just apply. That's all.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
So that's it.
But I think you mentioned without copying.
Without, no, it's still kind of resident in a model. You can't call it from another different model. No, you can't.
I think what you can do in a team is we probably have like a repository where you keep some of these reusable measures where people can just go. If there's an existing function, then you get to use it in your model so that you don't start writing some of these things from scratch.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Adewale. A very insightful session. No, as you are presenting this session, one thing came to mind. When people say that, oh, I want to do tech, but I don't want to do the coding part of tech, and then now we are doing UDF. What are we doing, right? So it's just very interesting that there is no way you can avoid writing some of these things yourself. You just have to write them, and then just makes your life way easier. And for me, the way I understand it is that you have been given the power to create your own function, right? Before, what we have is you have a situation whereby they are already built in DAX functions that you can use, your sum function, your add function, your calculate, and all the other functions. But in this case now, you have ability to actually write your own functions, and then you can share it across teams. You can share it to create so many nice visual. I remember before, in the last 2 years or thereabouts, before we have some of these new features, your user defined function, the new card, and then you are trying to create this SVG type of visual. It will take you about 5 to 6 measures to create that. You first create the measure for the metric itself. You create another measure to check if it's greater than 0, another measure for the coloring, another measure for the Unicard character, making about 5 columns. But nowadays, you don't have to do all of that. With just a single measure, you are able to do that. And of course, I remember we had a session sometime last year about performance and about modeling. If you create this type of reporting and then you use your user-defined functions and then you create measure, for example, the year-on-year or the month-on-month that we created, then you have a situation where you have 6 more measures than the one where you have the user-defined function. Of course, the model size is going to be a lot bigger compared to where you have your user-defined function. So yeah, thanks so much, Adewale. It's such an very amazing and insightful session that we had there. I think Fatai hand is up. So Fatai, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oga Adewale, thank you very much. You're the best. I want to believe this is a very wonderful session. My question is very simple. I don't know if it's a question, I'll call it, yeah. I don't know if you mentioned it already, but I want you to touch on the usability of UDF across, will I say the tenant or across multiple Power BI models. So the ability to use it without restricting it to this singular model that where we've defined the UDF. Thank you, sir. Are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was distracted by something. Yeah, so thank you, Oga Fatai. It's nice to see you again and to talk to you. Yeah, like I
Can
said,
you
so
stop all this
currently,
Oga Fatai and Oga Adewale that you guys are doing?
we can't stop. So currently, like I said, so currently now, you are still limited to creating a UDF for a particular model, right? It's still kind of being centric to your particular model. So if you want to reuse it, maybe in another model, for example, the way I currently kind of use this is if you have CI/CD set up for your organizations, and then you have all your TMDL being linked to your Azure DevOps or GitHub, for example, everybody have access to each of the other models. So you can call something right there from your Visual Studio Code. In fact, you can even use the AI, which is the MCP, model context protocol, which can help you look at each of these UDF that has been written and bring it into your own model. But for now, it's resident to your own model. The only way you can do that now is to kind of maybe call it from your Visual Studio. Maybe if you have syncing of all your organizational model in one, or if you have a repository where you just drop all of these reusable functions. Say, for example, exchange rate. Exchange rate is going to be the same for everyone if you are using exchange rate in your organization. So why don't you just create one that everybody will use and then people will use it? Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And I think that's the end of this month's meetup. Let me just stop recording so that we can have other not so. Yeah, so thank you for the reactions in the chat.